Hey everyone, what is going on? So Christmas is now, what, 3 days away? So we should have some great Christmas films out, right? No, we're still stuck with Office Christmas Party in the cinemas, that's the only one we've got left. But we do have Passengers. But speaking of Christmas, I did get this cute little bastard as an early present. Look how cute he is. Anyway, let's talk about Passengers. Who cares about Christmas presents, right? We have a Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt movie in the cinemas to talk about. Let's go. So I'm gonna go out and say it. I really enjoyed the first half of this movie. Second half, not so much, but we'll talk about that a bit later on in the video. But the plot is that there's a ship called the Avalon, which is migrating to a new planet. Can't actually remember the name of it. I think it was like Homestead 2 or something. But anyway, they're migrating to a new planet, and Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence happen to wake up early, and they're 90 years too early to be exact, or at least 88 by the time the story actually starts getting in motion. But anyway, so they're like 90 years early, and they need to figure out why, and they need to try and get back into hibernation. But that's not really what the movie is about. This movie has more going for it than that, and I want to talk about that later, but that will involve some spoilers. So it starts off, and Chris Pratt's like on his own, which it was interesting. I actually really enjoyed that segment of the film. Jennifer Lawrence does come into play, but for the scenes where Chris Pratt first wakes up, at first he's freaking out. He's like, I have to get back to sleep. What will I do? And then he starts taking advantage of the deluxe suites and everything. And it's like, hey, that's what I would do if I were trapped on this luxury ship on my own for 90 years. I'd probably start doing that sort of stuff. And then he gets really isolated and bored, and you would pretty much go crazy at that point. And it was just interesting to see how he adapted to this world. And, Jennifer Lawrence comes into play, and he's like, I'm not alone anymore. And they're trying to figure out why they're on the ship and why they've woken up early. But then things happen that really start to throw the film off course a bit. I mean, there is this whole romance subplot between Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. Didn't bother me in the slightest. I actually thought it would have been kind of interesting, because they're the only people there. And it's like, usually if they were like around a lot of people, those people probably wouldn't have even met, and they probably wouldn't have even got together. But the fact that they're the only people there, and it's like, hey, I can actually buy into this. So that was an interesting point of the film for me. The second half is when the film gets really messy, and I really just wasn't a fan of the film. And then walking out, it made me have bad thoughts about the film, because it took away from the really good first half. I'll say the ship and the visual and everything look awesome, but it's just, the plot itself takes a weird kind of turn, and it's just like, I don't know if I can buy into that happening, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense by the end of it. And then the credits roll, and you're just like, what? Really? Did that happen? So from this point onwards, I think I'm going to get into some spoilers. So if you want to see Passengers and haven't seen Passengers, I'd say turn off this video now, watch something else. I have a Rogue One spoiler-free review you can check out if you haven't seen that one. But anyway, but speaking of Rogue One, in terms of sci-fi, this movie definitely is probably one of the weaker sci-fi movies I've seen this year, which is a shame because it had such potential. Arrival and Rogue One both did the sci-fi genre better. They're both very different films. They're both very different from each other. They're both very different from this one. But they both were better sci-fi movies than Passengers was. So it gets into the second half, and like I said, spoilers. We're introduced to Lawrence Fishburne's character, and we also find out, well, we find out this before we're introduced to Lawrence Fishburne's character, but he plays into it. And we find out that Chris Pratt actually woke up Jennifer Lawrence. He woke her up early because he was bored and he was going crazy. And it's like, to be honest, if you saw a chick like Jennifer Lawrence just asleep on a ship and you're on your own for over a year, you'd probably wake her up too. So yeah, he wakes her up, and she finds out. And I actually really like this as well. She starts going crazy at him. She's like, hey, I don't want to talk to you. You have ruined my life. And basically you think about it and you're like, Chris Pratt in this film's a dick. He actually ruined somebody's life, and he did. You think about it and you're just like, I have no sympathy for Chris Pratt. I actually have sympathy for Jennifer Lawrence here. And at points you feel sympathy for them both, and they do that very well also. But yeah, Lawrence Fishburne's character, he just sort of wakes up out of nowhere and he's like, oh yeah, my pod malfunctioned too. By the way, I'm about to die. Just a plot point to give you this key to sort out the... I don't even know what he was doing in the movie, to be honest. It didn't make a whole deal of sense. I mean, his character could have been cut out completely and we probably still would have got the same ending in the same film. We didn't need Lawrence Fishburne in this at all. Anyway, so once he was introduced, he was fine in the movie. He didn't do a bad job at all. He did fine. He pretty much did a good job. He played a Lawrence Fishburne that we know. So he was fine in the movie. It was just his plot point that kind of dragged the movie on. And it didn't need to drag the movie on like that. And at the end of the movie, the Avalon's undergoing some issues, and that's why Chris Pratt's pod opened early. There was a malfunctioning issue. He was the first person in the history of space travel to have a malfunctioning pod. And it's like, okay, fine. And then the ship starts getting destroyed, and Chris Pratt goes out, and there's like a whole beam of like a blast of like fire, and he's got this like door as a shield, and it blows him out, and his tether breaks, and you're just like, okay, Chris Pratt's died. And he's floating around in space, and he's lost all oxygen and everything. You're like, okay. I mean, it was a noble sacrifice, granted. Maybe Jennifer Lawrence will actually find a way to go back to sleep, and she'll wake up and be like, hey, this is our savior. He saved our lives. Nope. He goes back to the ship. Jennifer Lawrence like tethers herself and gets him, and it's like, okay, it was kind of cool that she did that, but he still should probably die, right? Nope. She puts him in like a healing pod thing, and she just presses loads of buttons, and he gets like defibrillated and like injections and everything. It's like, that would have just stopped his heart anyway. Like, his heart has stopped. You're going to explode his heart by doing all that stuff. She does all that, and all of a sudden Chris Pratt wakes up, and then it's like, but Lawrence Fishburne died, so you could have just done the same to him, and we wouldn't have to have a single dead character in this movie. What is this movie doing? And then the very end of the movie, Chris Pratt finds a way that they can go under again. They can re-sleep, and they can, or one of them can, but it's like, why don't you just both get in the pod together? Why don't it just send you both to sleep? But anyway, he finds a way, and he's like to Jennifer Lawrence, hey, you should take this pod, you should, live your life. And she's like, alright. But then the next scene, we see that they're just living on the ship in a perfect life, and it's like, that's cute and everything, but what idiots, like, come on, who does that? But anyway, the end of the movie, all the passengers wake up, and they planted like trees and things, and the ship's like now a jungle, and it's like, how did they do that? How do you grow things in space? So the movie was kind of stupid in that sense. I really didn't like the last act. The first act was great. I really, really did enjoy it. The last act was slow and choppy, and things just got really dumb and stupid. Like, it took the whole thriller element, but I actually preferred the isolation element to the film. So I'll say, if you want to see a decent sci-fi movie, the first half sets up a lot, and it makes you think about a lot of things that could involve isolation and space travel, and then the second half just kind of contradicts it all and ruins it. So I can't recommend this as a good movie, but I'll say I enjoyed it for what it was. It was a fine movie. It was just a fine movie. It wasn't a terrible movie, and at the same time it wasn't a good movie. It's one of those movies where you watch, you know you've seen it, you think about it, you think, hey, that wasn't as bad as I expected, but it also wasn't as good as it could have been. I'll probably never watch it again, but for what it was, Passengers wasn't a complete waste of time, and that's what I can say. It's not a complete waste of time, but at the same time, I didn't pay for it. So if you pay for it, I'd say don't. I'd say just watch Rogue One a second time, because that's a much better movie. But all in all, Passengers was okay. Nothing special, nothing awful. If you don't see it, you're not missing out on much. But, if you want to check it out and you think it looks okay from the trailers, then chances are you'll probably think it's okay. So that was my review of Passengers. Thank you guys for watching. Probably, if I don't, which I probably won't, make a film before Christmas, have a great Christmas, guys, and I will see you maybe in the new year, maybe before. Let's find out. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all soon.